Yeah, it's running.
It's running. So cool. So it's, first of all, I'm happy to be here. This is officially my first talk in Slovakia, which is very funny because it's definitely not one of my first talks ever. But as Dusan said, I'm living in Freiburg. Yeah, I'm living in Freiburg already 6 years, and the last 4 years and 7 months I was working for an agency in Basel, Switzerland, and we was building a lot of websites, application stuff with custom frontend for our customers. And there was like a lot of big customers, pharma companies, and stuff. Yeah, I have a slide. Don't worry. I have a whole slide about me, so I will introduce my properly. But first of all, I would like to ask you, how many of you using VueJS? Okay, cool. So there's few people who already knows. And NuxtJS? Anybody? Ah, cool. So few people. I like it. The questions or anything you want to ask me, contact me. You can find the best way is my Twitter. So just go to Twitter and tweet, ask me, write me a direct message or something like that. And also there's a website which is still a temporary website, and I hope I will update it, and there should be some blog posts or something like that, and also the blog post about the presentation I'm giving today. So, but first of all, I will introduce myself because Dusan asked me that. And I would like to say or see myself as a front-end knight and design ops. Who ever heard about design ops, guys? So that's the guys who are taking care about something, the gap between the designers and the front-end or back-end developers. They are that kind of people who try to translate between these two silos and like spending a lot of hours of thinking how can I explain this to the designer and how can I explain this to back-end developer. So it's very funny job. And lately we introduced a design system, so that's the stuff that do these guys. Then I'm a freelancer today, so basically for the last 19 days I'm unemployed or freelancer, as you want to see it. And yes, I'm speaker or kind of trying to be a better speaker. I had a few appearances on small conferences, and mainly I'm speaking on the meetups like this around Basel, Germany, and now this is my third meetup in the last 6 days, because I was speaking the last Thursday in Munich and also like in Dresden on Monday. I'm meetups organizer of the front-end meetup, digital experience meetup and stuff like that. Advocating for the Storyblock, which is a beautiful headless CMS which I have to encourage to use and try, and even with the NuxtJS it's something great. And I am fighting the battle on the side of the VueJS and NuxtJS against the React and the other guys. No, just kidding. It's a very fun VueJS and huge Star Wars fans. And a lot of other things, but this is the most important about me. So, I would like to start the presentation as I would say, not with the slides, not with the words, but I basically show you a story about the 3 pages where I will present the animations and how to create, and then in the future I will tell you in the other slides and code how to create it. So the first page I am showing you is a Shy Collective. It's a small web page I created like 2.5 years ago as a side project for a customer or for a little agency from Freiburg. Basically, the whole portfolio is about the movies. They're creating movies for the Kia and stuff like that, and they wanted to have like very smooth page where is a lot of small details about animations and openings, like the animation is coming into the screen very nicely, and they wanted to also have like a smooth transition between the pages. So if I click on the different page, you can see like we change the URL, but the transition was very smooth and nice. Also, like if I go to detail of one of the projects, there come at first the internet is slow, very slow. Yes, sorry guys. I have to check this. And yeah, it should work. Moment. Because I need this. Starbucks. Okay. Arrested or what?
Oh shit. Okay, everybody going.
probably that was because of the video I started. I don't know. Yes, the pictures. So what I want to show is like
Just stop this button.
something. Okay, cool. So if I click on the project, there should come exactly the header, and then leave, then came the project, and everything is very nice. You can look on the different, everything is like media. There's like not a lot of text. So and this is basically the whole page, which I was created with one of the designers, and really like talking a lot about it. And at the end, this whole project and this without the CMS take me like 180 hours to create, because there are a lot of small details hidden and a lot of adjustment and stuff like that. And it's crazy because it's a lot of time. And at the end, I wasn't paid very well for that. But it was like, you know, side project. Then, of course, I created something like this. This is one of the last projects I created for the agency I was working for. And this is basically the page where also you can read the about the cultures and our values in the company. And this is the same principle, where you can see that we are going through the different URLs, but still the feeling of the pages that we are not leaving the first page. So you can copy the URL, send to your friend, and he will go land to correct page. But still, there is a lot of nice storytelling, and like the animations are making sure that the feeling of the page is nice, and there's happening a lot of stuff. And this was taking me much less time. It's created with VueJS and NuxtJS, and it was fun to do. But still, if there's like no sync between you and the designer, it can take to create something like this also like few months. There was a lot of versions of this page. But the last page, why I show you that page is basically because I'm going to show you how to create that page transition between the pages. And now the last page, which is the page I was creating also as a side project for the Süddeutsche Zeitung Bread Studio. And this is like page where there's a lot of animations, and this page is really small. And there's a kind of storytelling where the animations are working together with the text. You can read the text, and to that you get proper animations, which is showing some statistic and other stuff. This was basically the story behind the page. Is kind of like a friend of mine was asking me on the Facebook, like, hey, Sam, how much time do you like proper frontender need to create this page? And I was like, you know, like I would say like 1.5 weeks to 2 weeks if you are like good and you know what you're doing. And after all of that time, he asked me like, of course, like if I have a time to build it. And I was like, I have no time, of course. But I was thinking about like new challenges and stuff like that, so I took the challenge and I started to work on it. And at the end, the amount of hours to spend on this page, there's like the pizza is closing, opening, there's like freeze of this head, and as I'm scrolling you get like different font family, and here is like written what this means for us in our head and stuff like that. And the end, it was like 67 hours, which is, if you think about it, is much less than the page I was showing on the beginning, like the Shy Collective. So the question is how to create something like this so fast. And this is like really not a big problem to create something like this. And even better, your designer will be happy because you always like give the opportunity to design to really excel and do the design in what they are like really good. So this will be like the last sample I will be showing you how to create that. But at first I have to start with the basics and the theory. And the basics and the theory is of course the CSS3 transitions and animations. So if you are the frontender or backender or designer, and especially if you are like frontender or the designer, you should look on at least the CSS3 transition and animation, because only with this basics now you can create a very nice page transitions for the pages, for the objects. And one of that I love to show is like the small startup and the pricing table, because there is a pricing table on the bottom which is a little bit scaled, but I will make it smaller. And as I scrolling into the screen, the pricing table is just coming, just fading in. Also the other elements are fading in, and the whole feeling of this page is like nice. It's just that little shiny star you just put there to make the user feel better, and he feel also that the product is better. Even there's maybe no difference, but it makes the product kind of better. This is how our head's working. And to create like animation like on this page, you basically need like fine lines of jQuery or even vanilla JavaScript, which will be removing one class, and then few lines of the CSS transition to just like translating from the opacity 0 to opacity 1 with some moving of the element from, so translating element, and that's all. So start with transition and animations. Then of course, as I would say, like as I'm a big fan of the VueJS documentation, but the VueJS, but I'm going to show you this for the VueJS in the VueJS. The same principle, but also applied to React and I think also in Angular. The VueJS have a very nice documentation, and this is why I'm going to show it in documentation, because if you will use in future the VueJS, you don't want to look for my presentation, you want to look for the documentation and know where you can find it in the documentation. So how the animations and transitions are working in the VueJS, and it's very easy. The first and most important thing what you need to understand about it is that and this will be a little challenging because this is the first time I'm giving this talk not to VueJS audience. So basically this is three things in Vue. There is a template, then there is the view, and then there is a CSS. You can write it into one file, and then you have a so-called one file of all of them, sorry. The most important thing is like here, you will wrap the transition into the transition element or component. And in this case, we are going to show hello if the view if is equal to true. If it's equal to false, it will be not shown on the screen. So there is some data in Vue, initialize it, and by default it's true. So the Boolean value is true. And then there is a definition for the transition. In my case, I am translating from the translating opacity, and I'm translating this opacity for 500 milliseconds. And the question is like, okay, what I'm doing with this opacity? I'm doing that I'm translating from 0 to 1 if I'm entering the field, so if it's changing from false to true, and if I'm going to change from true to false, then I will be leaving to opacity 0. So basically this very simple code can do this. You see, like I'm hiding and showing the hello. So how this done is basically that VueJS is adding and removing 6 classes. And the best way to explain is this diagram. Because this diagram is basically all you need to understand from the basics. The V here in this diagram you can replace with the fade in our case, because the transition on the top in the template was named fade. So that's why there is like we enter, it will be fade enter. The we enter 2 will be fade enter 2, and we enter active will be fade enter active. As I'm initializing the state of entering is the 0, and the default state of CSS for opacity is 1. So for a short moment there will be like also fade enter class with opacity 0. Then in the next tick in the JavaScript, it's in Vue world, is basically just in few milliseconds will be this class removed, and then we will be translating to opacity 1. And the class we enter active will be there for whole time of the transition. So in my case it will be like this 500 milliseconds. And the same thing will be applied also for the leave, just revert it from opacity 1 to opacity 0, because we are leaving to 0. And that you can see here, that I define that I am entering from and where I am leaving to. So very simple and very easy. I'm going to probably now a little bit jump through the documentation, but there are a few things you need to understand. You can with Vue and I think like also React, Angular, the same principle. You can animate between the components. You can animate between different states, and you can make the animation a little bit more funny. So here in this case, I'm just changing that the entering will be a little bit faster. In our case, it will be 300 milliseconds, and the timing function will be is. For the leaving, I choose that I'm going to be 800 milliseconds, and I define the function which basically saying how it will be translated or animated in our case. So, and also I'm changing not only opacity, but I'm also moving that p tag to the right side. So I will be leaving to right side 10 pixel, also entering from the right side. So if I now click the button, the hello is leaving very slowly to right, and now we'll be entering fast from the right side. I hope you all see it. If you don't see it, just cry now, it's too small. Okay, no problem. The same thing you could do with the animation. So if you understand the animation, you can integrate it with these classes, and after that you can do something like this. It's very simple, very fast, no problem. Basically I'm writing only CSS for now. These all, of course the question is, what about more complicated animations? Like I'm sure like few of you already heard about libraries like GreenSock, which are taking care of the animations, and there are many of them like morphing JavaScript or Ramjet or I don't know. So there are like also hooks, of course, in VueJS. So basically you can start different JavaScript functions on the different hooks. So if on the beginning of the animation, transition, entering, after entering, on cancelled and stuff like that. But this is still not the one most important thing you should understand for the page transition. That's the modes. And the modes are a little bit down here. So I will scroll a little bit down and show it to you in the moment. So there are transition modes, right? Transition modes are used if we are translating or animating between two components or two elements. So basically, you can show on the page like one button, and this button is, in our case, it's off. But in the transition wrapper are two buttons, but only one of this button is shown in one moment, in the same moment. So if I click on the off, you can see also the second button, and then one of the button is leaving and one button is entering. This is what is here happening. Is basically the classes for the entering will be added to the off button, and the on button after click will get the leaving classes. And it will the same principle that it will take time for 500 milliseconds as I showed on the top. But there is like little change. Okay, I have the transition mode. This is the default mode, which is not defined or empty string in the case of the VueJS. So the first mode is I will show you is in out. So basically at first the button will come in and then the button will leave. No, I will show off in. Yes. So at first we will be out in. Sorry, my mistake. So here is happening that I'm saying like I want to first leave the screen and then I want to enter something to screen. So if I click on the button left. For a short moment there was a white screen, basically nothing on the screen, and then you will see as the translating opacity of the entering of the button which is entering. In this case we will be leaving the off and on button will be coming to screen. And this basically white screen is there just because they are leaving to opacity 0. The other mode is in out, and this mode is basically that at first we will enter the element into the screen and then we will leave this element which should leave. So now at first you can see as the on button is entering screen and then the button off was leaving. Now at first the off button will enter the screen and then will leave the on button. Ta-da! This you can do between the components and other stuff. I am not going too deep to VueJS because I don't see the point of it, but if you want to know more about the VueJS, it's really cool, and just use it for the stuff like this or other stuff. Now I will jump to the NuxtJS, which makes very useful the page transitions. Because NuxtJS is a framework built on VueJS. The similar in the React world is NextJS, and the point is like by default there's already a transition for every page. In the Next world, every page is a component, so we can animate or translate between them, of course. And then for each page, you can define a transition. And you can define it as a string, a transition object, or a function. The basic thing, if you are doing it with string, the same thing as we applied with the fade. So we just say like it's a page transition, and in this case, it will be applied the page, the entering and the leaving classes on the page component. And also you can also define the mode for each page. By default, it's called page. and the mode is out in, what is a little bit different to the Vue.js documentation where is no defined mode. And in this case, if you want to use that default mode of the Vue.js, you would have to override it to empty string. But the thing is that you don't have to write any JavaScript. You just write the CSS file with your like transitions between the pages. And if you use the default, so page, you can already have some pretty nice animations as I showed you before. The one specialty about the NuxtJS is that there is also layouts. This is a little bit tricky to explain now, but the thing as the NuxtJS is working is that every page have also different layout, and the layout is the component. So it's the same thing as the page. But if you are like going from one page to different page which have two different layouts, you're not animating between the pages but between the layout. So in that case, you will have to define the animation or your transition on the layout element or component. So that's all you need to know about it. But you can also use this trick that if you need a special animation between some pages, you just change the layout and don't have to create and write a complicated JavaScript function which is checking where you are going or what are you leaving, or like using a store for it or something like that. That is the same thing. So basically you have a layout and then mode, nothing more complicated. So, but now you definitely want to see some samples. So at first I just start with a simple dialog box. My local is already working, and as you can see, here is the basic screen, and if I click on this button, open dialog, it will open a dialog, which is very easy and very nice. And if I click close, it will close. How it looks, the code for this thing. This is my NuxtJS project, and you should now also cry and shout if it's too small, but I think it's big enough. So basically I have a dialog, which is a component, this is a, I forgot the name of that, but this is the Vue.js syntax where you have a template, then the script of the logic, and also SCSS in the one file, if you didn't use the Vue.js before. So all you need to know is basically here I write a template. Here I write some logic of the button or of the box or anything here, and then I can here write the SCSS. I don't have to, I can write CSS, anything like that. This is a component which I'm using on the intro page, and then you can see here that on the bottom I have a simple transition, which is basically saying that the transition name is dialog, and inside I'm just rendering the button, and the button will be rendered if the show dialog variable is true, and if it's false, it will be hidden. So it will even not be in DOM because it's if not show. And if it's clicked, if it's returned the click event, we will toggle the dialog, which is a method, which basically doing nothing else, just switching between the true false. It's very easy and simple. This is how the word of Vue.js is working. So you have a method and then dialog, and then you define this as the data here, where is by default it's false, and then I have to switch to true. So here the Vue knows that he should implement a transition or trigger a transition, and more about the transition I am saying in the dialog box component or SCSS file or anywhere. And basically this is the code here, which is like from the line 17 to line 48. So it's like 30 lines of code, the whole animation you saw. The rest of the CSS here is just the styling of the element, so basically the design. But the animation, I just have a variable which is saying like, okay, it will be 400 milliseconds, and there is some delay because the background of this box, this gray area, is coming a little bit sooner as the white box, and that's it. Okay, what I'm going to animate or translate, it's the opacity. Here you have to define the duration, and the Vue.js knows, okay, here is the duration, and it will be 400 milliseconds, so I know that I'm animating for 400 milliseconds. That's done. Then, of course, the timing function, you can experiment with that. I'm happy now with ease in and out. The box have plus minus the same thing. I just remove the delay from the duration and add the delay. and then say that we are going to change the animate transform. And then the whole thing is that I'm entering from the opacity 0, and also the box, the white box, is scaled to 0, and also the leaving to scale 0 and opacity 0. So here is where I am going to leave to if I'm going from true to false, and this is the what I'm doing if I'm going from false to true. As I'm using SCSS, I couldn't even save few lines and move this code here. So basically, I would do only this, and it will do the same thing. But that's not the point today. So as I show you, I can also prove it that it's working if I change this to, let's say, 4 seconds, and if I now click, then it should be very slow. And this is the whole trick, very easy, simple animation with the VueJS. Or I think React Angular do it the similar way, so don't worry. The thing here is I love to show this sample, which is basically the sample that every frontend that ever have to deal with, and this collapsing stuff. You have a FAQ and we want to open and close some answer for the questions like this. And this is very tricky for the frontend because we don't know the height of this whole thing and the stuff like that, and it's also some hacks like min height and other animations with the CSS. The best way to do it is very easy. Just use an npm package, search for the right package, and then implement it. And the implementation would look like this, that I'm importing the collapse transition from the Vue2 transitions, and then basically just override the default transition with the collapse transitions and did the same thing as I did before with the box. So that if it's open, it will show this nice opening and closing. Okay, that was the sample stuff. Let's experiment with the page transitions, because this is what you want to see definitely. So if I go to localhost, I prepared this small experiment with the transitions between the pages, and it is also, I will provide you a link to the code sandbox where you can play with it also after that. So at first, if I click here on the first page, the page is coming from the bottom. As you can see, it's a really big page. If we're going to second page, it's always coming from the bottom. The next page is coming from the bottom. And if I go back, it's coming from 2 black rectangles filling the screen and leaving screen. If here I'm this is something like the menu, and I will choose go to second page, then it's also going from the bottom. And if I go to back, there's animation, I can go to third, and the same thing is happening. So how to create something like this? And the answer is it's very, very easy. So at first in the is the Nuxt config, and what I'm going to show you is basically here, this is the settings you need to do for the JavaScript basically in the Nuxt word. And basically I'm just saying okay, my page transition default transition for the pages will be default, and the mode will be empty. So I want to apply the leaving and entering classes in the same time, not after each other or something like that. So, and then I create a CSS, which is transitions pages, and here is my code for the transition. So if you look, the default is from here to here, so 26 lines of code is what I showed you now between the page coming from the bottom. So it's very, very easy. So at first, the same principle, I'm saying 800 seconds, cool. Then I'm saying what I'm going to translate. Then the entering page will be fixed under default or under the screen basically. I'm saying it will be 100% width, and just because of the layout. Also I'm using the translate 3D because of the acceleration of the graphic card. And I'm saying that the whole thing of the page is moved under default. That is basically this line is 100 view height, and then the page which will be leaving to opacity 0.2 because it's nicer, and it will not move totally up, but it will move slower as the page which is entering. This is the point. And the entering page is of course entering to opacity 1, no opacity 1, it's just entering into the normal position where it would be, so it's top of the page. So, how to show it? Let's make this a little bit slower. So at first, let's make it 8 seconds, so that you can see that it takes a little bit slower. As you can see, now it's already done, and it was faster as the page which was leaving. I even can show it much better. Then I will say that it will not leave so much the leaving page, and if I will do it with the red one, then now it will be even much faster. And I can show it even better. So let's do it properly with the inspector, which is totally crazy big, but let's do this. We don't see this as CSS, and let's do this 50. Cool. So at first, what will be happening here is that we have a next, and in the next we have the main. The main is our main page. So if I open here the first page, then you can see in the first page there is the main, and there is some design classes, and also I'm defining key. This is also something Vue needs to know, that there are these different mains, but this is main. So the second page is also in the main. So cool. Okay. Keep in mind we have a main. Now we see one main. If I click to the first page, we will see two mains, and one main will be leaving, second main will be entering. So, and that is so easy. So one is entering applied with the leaving classes, and this one is entering with the entering classes. And the whole magic is done. There's nothing else, no more complicated stuff, and you can do a lot of crazy stuff with it, because you can also like animate the elements inside the page. So like you say, like all the p text will be going from the blue to red, or I don't know. Just let your designer or your imagination go wild. So the thing is that we still define only the default transition between the pages. But as you can see, if I'm going back home, which is in my case, I call it intro page, I'm having this different animation. I will make it faster, sorry. So if I now click the back, it's these two black rectangles, and it's different animation. And this is also very easy to do. You just go to your intro page in this case, and on the intro page, I just override the default animation for the name with the name intro, and I also change the mode to out-in. So in this case, the page is at first leaving the screen, and then the page is entering the screen. And what is happening here in CSS, I can explain it very easy. And that's basically that it's also taking 800 milliseconds. There's a delay of 300 milliseconds from the second rectangle. So this black rectangle is like a little bit delayed. That's why we see them after each other. And then there are like just created with the before and after stuff. No, not big deal. And basically, we are filling the screen. And in the moment as the screen is filled with the black, we switch the components. And then the new component or the new page starts with the black screen, so we don't see this jump between two pages, and we're removing the black. And it seems like it's working very nice and pretty, and you know, that kind of stuff. But this is just this little trick behind. And of course, I can show you a little bit slower. So if I change this variable to 8,000 milliseconds, it will be much slower. And this here, that will be the difference. But we will see that there will be all time only one main. So now I click to back home, the leaving classes are applied, and after it's filled to black, the main will be removed, and into them will be added the new main with the entering classes, which contains also the new content. That's it. Nothing else and nothing more complicated. But as I already show you, there is also one different thing, and this is basically the layout in the Nuxt form. And this layout, what it's doing is that if I'm going to different layout page, so in this case, this page here under different layout, we will use the different layout, which is very easy and convenient for me to show you. And if I click on this button, there is only jump. This is how our web is working usually now and today. And it's like, okay, this is not nice. What can I do without this? With this? And also, if I go back to first page, okay, still there was like changing of the layout. So what I'm going to do is basically in the next word, I would go and just define default layout as I did for the pages. And this is a very nice trick because I can use it also for something else, and that's the preloader. And I will remove this still to show you the point. Because I didn't know if you catch it, but as I go to localhost, there's a preloader, and then I enter the intro screen. But as I showed you a little time before, if I'm entering the intro screen, the two black rectangles should fill the screen and then remove the screen. But that's not happening. It is not happening because I'm using the layout. So this is this trick you can then use for the layout with the layout, that if you want to use a different transition between the pages like this. So if now I go from the localhost, there is different animation or transition. And then in this moment, as I did it as a default and not only for the intro page, if I go here, it's also like happening this stuff. And now I'm going back to the layouts and it's happening now. So this is how you can do the transition between the pages. It's very easy, and I encourage you to use it on your website, project, application, and anywhere you want to do, because it's very easy, very fast, that you can achieve a lot with little code of the code. So there is also then the link where you can find this stuff, and it will be provided definitely in the meetup.com or somewhere, or the Twitter. But now to the Schriftbewerkt. I hope it works. So at first I have to change the project. So now it's yarn dev, and the local started. My Max is starting, and this is the intro animation. So basically, it's not very nice. Sorry for that. It's not really like this for every screen on the world. But what is happening here? Back to here. At first, you need a designer who knows the After Effects or other tools, because all the animation you can see on that page. So basically, the animation on the top, the animation here on the right side, this mouse, or even this, which are like connected to the scrolling event, and also this is the connected, if you can see it. And other stuff are created at first in Illustrator, and then using the After, they are moved or created as animations. So then in After Effects you have to install the body moving. This is the stuff you need to tell to your designer to create this, by the way. You can use then their output. So there's a plugin called body moving, and using the body moving you can export a JSON file with a very nice sample, which can use also your designer. And this JSON file you can use using the library called Lottie Web. And this library is a pretty nice library, and I don't know why not a lot of people know about it. So the first question, did anybody heard about Lottie before? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, right, nice. So if you heard about it, you probably should create a lot of nice websites already. But there is this beautiful page from the Airbnb where all you need to know about how to start with it, and all the animation on this page are basically JSON files and inline SVGs animated using the JavaScript, and it's very, very, very simple. It's not like the green sock is like nuclear problematic for this. This is basically the basic stuff. You just play, stop, move, make it slower, faster, attach events, everything like that. So at the end, you will find what you need to install and how you can integrate it. You can integrate also into the Angular, vanilla JavaScript, jQuery, VueJS, Vue Native, etc. Not only Android, iOS, React Native. This is a little bit old, I think, now. And if you Google, then you will get to the page. I think it's where is it? No. Here, this one. This is the GitHub repository which you need to find, and there's also npm package called Lottie Web, and this is also like show you a few samples how you can integrate it, what you can do. But at the bottom there are functions or usage, And this is like what you are going to do. You're going to play, stop, pause, set location, set speed, go to a frame or milliseconds and stop, or just reverse, set direction, stuff like that. Get direction. So this is basically basic functions. But if you connect it with your Vue.js, Angular, or React, you can create all that stuff I showed you. And of course, you need a mat and a lot of try and error. It's always that thing. So start with the sample, Lottie sample in Vue.js. This is a little bit more technical stuff about the Lottie, but how to implement with this Lottie, you need a Lottie component where I'm going to define diff, which will be replaced with my inline SVG and it will be animated. Then in script, I'm going to import a Lottie package. Then I'm going to define that what this component awaits as props. So basically, I have to, if I'm using this component, I have to send him the options where it will be like my JSON file, and where I'll be sending the data about the animation, which is needed to me to render the animation, of course. And then some height, and which not important at all. Basic styling, so CSS styling, also Vue stuff, a little bit stuff. And then on the mounted cycle, which is basically as you it's happening already in your client, you will initialize or load the animation, and you are saying like where should be the animation going. So that was that container. What is the renderer, and if it will be looping or auto playing, of course. And then you will provide the JSON data. After that, I'm emitting an event, which is called like animated animation was created and sending the handler for it. And this handler will be used for like moving the animation, stopping the animation, maybe faster, or like what you want to do with it. So that was very simple component. And now how complicated is created that hero area I showed you a few moments ago. So I stay on the local. So how complicated is created this area? It's pretty easy. So at first, little bit Vue, as always. And Vue and the index file or index page, I have defined that there's like included or rendered the component hero area. And this hero area basically just get a props, which is called window width. And inside of this hero area is the whole animation. So what is in the hero area? In hero area is a little bit template, which is CSS. And then there is the component use. So here I'm using the component. I'm sending options, which I showed a little bit later ago, and I'm sending a JSON object in this case. In this hero desktop option, I'm going to say animation data, so my animation, and then if it should start as autoplay or should loop. The last question and most important question is like what is this animation data? How did I provide it? So in my case, I'm just importing the JSON file from the assets from the animations. So what is that exactly? If you can look into my assets, then there is the animations folder, and inside the animation folders are all the animation on the page as a JSONs. So if I open now, for example, the head, then it's a really big JSON, which is probably so long and so big and so not possible to read or even to create it, that it could be only generated. After all that, you do nothing else as a little bit CSS styling, and then I emitted an animation created event, which in the Vue world I expect a method, and this method is taking care that it will be like changing my animation. So what is doing this method? It's basically that it expects object or handler for the animation, and I am using it to set the speed in my case. So because the designer provided the animation with some timeline, and the animation was nice and done, but it was like a little bit slower, and the customers like, couldn't we do it a little bit faster? So we are just killing the gap, and I don't have to go to my designer saying like, hey, can you make it faster that I can implement it? Because no, I just go to my code and say like, okay, let's make it faster, and it's done. It's faster. So let's change it to 3 to prove that it's really working. So now see, it's very fast, and I changed the animation. Okay, that was the very simple hero area, but it was very simple. It was really not complicated. I basically just included, loaded, started, stopped, done. What about the pizza? The pizza is a little bit better sample because there is something happening. And the pizza is basically that there is a pizza, and if I'm opening it, then it's closing, opening very slowly. If I do it faster, then it's do faster and stuff like that. So, how to do this? In the world of the view. So as you can see here down, I have a pizza section component, and there's like expecting some height of the window and also the number of the window scroll. So basically, I'm just initializing the scroll. I'm just watching the handle scroll event. So on the window, and updating number of the pixels scrolled from the top of the page, and I'm sending to my component because I will need it later to animate the opening of the pizza according to these pixels. So that is what I'm sending to the component, and what is happening in the component. So if I open the component, then you can see basically the same stuff I showed you before. The first thing is like I have a Lottie, which also have some options, and I'm sending here the pizza option in this case, which is the animation data, so the JSON file of the pizza animation, which is by default doing that opening. Then I'm saying the default options, which in my case it will be like false and false, no autoplay and no looping. And then I'm doing more. I'm then also waiting emitted created event, which basically just do the handle the pizza. But in this case, I'm not doing there anything like setting the speed or stuff like that. I basically like just say that my data, which I call the variable animation pizza, will be equal to my animation, which was returned from this loaded animation, Lottie animation. And then later I will use this variable to move and to do the stuff with the animation. But how? I will show you now. Because as you can see, there is a wrapper for the whole animation. This is the animation, and there is a div wrapper which contains a vview, which is a directive which is checking if the pizza is coming into the screen, because we need to know when to start the animation. And in our case, as I can show you, the animation will start a little bit later as we enter the screen. So it starts now, or it maybe start a little bit sooner, but it's not on the beginning on entering the screen. It's like into like 30% of the screen. So, and that's taking care of this handle pizza view, which is checking, okay, is the animating already started, and are we entered the screen? If we enter the screen, then what we are going to do? So we need to find out what is the height of the start height, where we should start animating this SVG. So in my case, it's like number of the pixels scrolls from the top of the page and calculating like 20% of the window height. So also we need to define where we should end the animation. So in that case, it will be like where we starting plus 90% of the window height. Then we also find out the duration of the animation, which is in my case very funny because I don't know why here is this -1, but it's working. But this is like some trick with the frames, I think. Sorry, it was late and I don't remember. And of course, like I'm saying, like, okay, we started already the animation and we have these values. We don't need to find the values second time. But this is still, we don't animate. So how we animate? Still the question, sorry. It takes a time, but there is a little trick. Because we are sending to this component updated number of the pixels from the top, we have to watch them. So there is a watcher, watch. There is a watch, which is VueJS, and same thing in React, and I don't know where. And we are checking these props, which will send, in this case, window scroll from the top. And we are checking if it's deep. So if it's new value, I'm saying the new value, the new pixels. So if I am scroll a little bit down, then it's like 1000 pixels. I will send the new value to the function or method which is called animate pizza on scroll. And there I'm doing the math and whole trick. So at first I have to find out according to the new value, where in the timeline of the whole animation should I be? Like, should I be on the 20%, 30%, 40%, 55%, or anywhere? Then I will change it to the time in my case. So I know the whole duration of the animation, let's say it's 5 seconds, and the 30% from that is, I don't know, 1 point something. So, okay, what's next? So then I'm going to check, is the time lesser than 0? If it's it, then I want to stay on the 0, of course. I don't go to like back in the time or something like that. It's probably not possible. Then if it's the time, of course, lesser than the duration, then probably I'm exactly like somewhere on the timeline. So I want to update it on the new time. So basically, I just say like, okay, we are now scrolled a little bit and we are on the 25%. So let's move the timeline of the animation to 25%, and that's happening here. That I'm saying that go to and stop to this time. And of course, if I'm over 100% of the timeline, I'm wanted to be on the 100% on end of the animation and don't want to change it anywhere because I would get probably some crazy error. So just set the animation to stop on 100% of the time. And that was the whole trick, basically. How to create this pizza animation, and that's also like it's faster and slower. There is 2 more stuff I would like to show you. That first is the VueFX, and basically this is how it's done this head. This is a little tricky because this is also one step even more complicated than pizza, as there is the scroll event, and the whole thing is consisting of basically the head is one animation, the text in the head is one animation, and also like this text is one animation, and the white triangle is in this case only CSS. And this is animating basically on that premise that it's checking the scrolling, but also like the whole head, it's wrapped with a bigger element, which is called VueFX. There's also like npm package for that. And basically the head is then positioned fixed. If we reach the top of the head, then in this moment it was changed to fixed. It will be like staying on the screen for the whole time as we are scrolling this bigger wrapper. And if this wrapper is then reaching the bottom of the head, then it will like just change the positioning to the bottom of this wrapper, and scrolling continue normally and look like it's anything was happening, but there is like a longer page behind. So, and another thing was this view check view, which was using for us if we are already on the screen. So the technical stuff. Okay, that was basically all the code, and now just about my reaction. As I found out about Lottie, this was my reaction. I was like totally like getting crazy, and was trying a lot of stuff and creating stuff and experimenting in the company, and it was like we have to use it for the different stuff. And the funny good thing is like we as frontenders, or at least I as a frontender, created already many crazy stuff like SVG icons, icon fonts, animated icons, inline SVGs, and you can. But about you can think about the thing about the Lottie is that we can use it also like for example for the font family icon font. You can think about every frame contains one icon. You can animate these icons. You can morph these icons. You can put there different animations. You can change them in the moment that you click on the button. You get error. You pop something and stuff like that. And in my head was like exploding with all the possible use cases where we could find it. And I was not understanding why is not Lottie a big thing out there. And then my reaction just escalated, because the thing is that there is a lot of stuff like on the YouTube, for example, where you have a lot of animations, like lot of SVG characters I mean illustration which moves and do stuff, or trailers for events. Like we did a event trailer for our digital experience event, which was like removing rectangles with some text and dates and stuff like that. And we have to export it like in the different formats and bigger, and put it on YouTube and then share and then put on the website and put there. And it was like few megabytes. And if we export, and then I asked my designer, hey, can you export this with this body moving? And the whole thing was like 250 kilobytes. It was scaled. It was working on Internet Explorer 10 even, and you can put it anywhere and play it. And the thing is like, okay, what about the games? So do you want to create a Mario? So okay, let's create a Mario, because you just put together a few animation, then you have like few mouse or key ones, and you can move this stuff because you don't have to animate the stuff. The animation is already done by your designer. You just saying like, okay, now you are clicking on to the right, then the animation is like moving this direction and doing this stuff. Ta-da! So I was like, that was my reaction, and it's still. So if you want to find, remember something from this presentation is this link. Now it's time to take photos and just, this is how you can then create better stuff and cooler stuff. And if you would like to read the article about it, I'm sure there's other articles about it. I'm working on it. I want to post it somewhere, and the best way to find about it is like to follow me on Twitter, and then you will probably get it. And there is few bonus links, because you don't have to use only the After Effects. There is also a haiku, which will be loaded, yeah, which is a haiku animator for the themes, which you can also use. I don't know why, but I don't know which one is better, if the After Effects or the haiku. Let's go and try it. It should be like integrated already with Sketch, Figma, Illustrator. I don't know, maybe it's better than After Effects even. Then the second link I wanted to show is Lottie files. And this is the thing, you are all developers. You are not going to create your animations. But there are a lot of crazy cool guys who already created many animations. There's a whole community which is basically around this page called the Lottie files. And there you can find free animation to download, which you can use today on your pages. Or even you can find another animators who are creating all these crazy animations, which are very small, which are very useful, and you can use them on your pages. There are like various filters, like, I don't know, like popular, and do like enhance your application, your websites, and all that stuff. And even you can do like, click on the file, you can play with the timeline, what's happening on the timeline, because this is what basically is doing the designer then. Then you can go here, like test it, like, okay, edit layers. So there's like some alpha layer where you can click, and with a little bit lag, I will not destroy it. So if I click here, go up there, I can change the color to something, but I don't know color, what did I change, so I cannot preview it correctly. And that's the stuff. Yeah, so that's really important. And then thanks. And one more thing, it's the Finder. I will show you only what will get your designer after he exports it from the After Effects. It's basically this folder, and this is the JSON file, and additional to that, the body movie also exported as HTML. So the designer can preview it all without you how it will be looking. So this is the animation I'm working now already for one page, and this is like what designer can check, like, is it working? Because it's After Effects. If you use there's an SVGs, so if you use some crazy gradients and stuff like that, the animation is possibly is not working correctly, so you can check if it's working correctly. Okay, that was it. Any questions? Go ahead, ask me on some of Snopko as a Twitter or email, or I will update this because it's not Dresden, it's minus Košice without the umlaut. Okay. Any questions? Yeah.
So how does the adding of multiple animations increase the user experience in general?
In general?
In general.
In general, it's happening so that there are many nice talks about it, and many people who are talking about it better than me. But in general, the user is, if our pages are very slow, in general, answer I would say, like, if it's very slow, the user don't wait a long time. If you put their animation, which doesn't have to be a big file, it can enhance and make the user to wait for that stuff. Also, like, if you imagine, like, if you create an animation of, you want to check some product, and you see using the animation how this product works, and all that stuff. That's basically UX. The users inclined to not read a lot and don't wait a lot. So it's not maybe exactly UX, but you know, like, there is already like, if nothing is happening on the page for more than 500 milliseconds, I think it's already like the user is like, okay, the site is broken, I'm not waiting, I'm leaving. But it's like, if there is some just loader or preloader which is doing nothing, and this is the case of a lot of pages, basically, like, they're doing the preloaders because they're cool. So if you go to culture page website, and this is like loader for 1 to 100, And there is no loading behind. This is just effect for the user, that he has the feeling, oh, now they are loading the cool stuff, and now I'm waiting, and then, oh, okay, now it's coming, it will be exciting. It's just the emotions. Sorry. Sometimes. Of course, sometimes it's also more behind it. Any question from designers?
Maybe offline, because I know them.
One question still, is there a need to implement some kind of a fallback for this, or should it work at any time?
This is cool. This is a good question.
Repeat.
Hmm?
Repeat the question.
Repeat. Okay. Is there needed any fallback for the animations, or it's working all the time? I honestly didn't test it. What's happening without the JavaScript, because the whole page is the VueJS, so without JavaScript makes sense, not sense at all this game. But yes, this is possible to do. I think like I would have to check it, because the whole thing is now happening on the mounted cycle. So if in my case, it wouldn't work. But there is possible to do a very easy fallback, because we can implement the inline